No virtual console at launch. So, no, you can't talk about that yet. What you can't talk
No virtual console at launch.
Am I fired?
Is more, no, not yet.
Okay.
More,
For those
more
listening to the
important
audio
than this-
version, Per was just hand
He's getting a little grabby.
stroking
She's getting
the
grabby
switch
with
that
the
is on the
switch.
table
All
in
right,
front
all
of
right.
us.
Let's start with. Sorry, Sean. If you're in the booth, just face palming. I apologize. We're gonna talk about no virtual console on Switch. In a press release today about a specials Nindies broadcast, which could kind of be interpreted as code name for not a Nintendo Direct, but is a Nintendo Direct. This broadcast that they announced that's happening next week on Monday. They said in the press release, virtual console games will not be available on Nintendo Switch at launch. We'll share more information in the future. So our thoughts, I mean, we kind of knew this would happen, being so close to system launch and them not saying a word.
It's such a selling point that if this were going to happen at launch, they would have spoken about it. I think we kind of expected it. What I take from this is it's them saying it's not going to be available at launch means that it might be available eventually. It could mean that they just don't want to shut that door officially and maybe they're not working on it. But the hopeful side of me thinks that this means it's going to come maybe later this year or early next year.
It's, I mean, Virtual Console is 100% coming to the system, right? Like, it's such a great value proposition to take the games of the past with you on the go, and they just have this tremendous catalog. So it's going to happen. I wasn't actually surprised that it wasn't going to be there at launch simply because they haven't talked about it.
Yeah.
I was for a while worried that eShop wasn't there at launch because Nintendo has done staggered releases, right?
Yeah.
And honestly, so have other platforms before it. It's not like the Xbox 360 launch with all the features that you had at the end of the life cycle with Xbox Live. And so, you know, the big question we all have is like, what's the account system like? Is there anything for people who have owned the games before, or is there something that there isn't, and so they didn't want to have this at launch and talk about the fact that you have to rebuy everything? So we don't know, right?
Yeah, and they were kind of in this week that they were able to make your own username on the My Nintendo thing. So I'm hoping that kind of leads to like, hey, we'll have a bigger account system going in. And hopefully, like if you bought something previously, you can switch it over.
Okay.
Not to use
Certainly your
Switch
money,
it over?
like,
Yeah.
Certainly the money you spend on cards or the money you have sitting in your 3DS will transfer over to the Switch. So the account system already allows for, you know, for the virtual currency to be shared across all the different systems. So that's already another good sign.
Yeah.
But whether they'll give us a game for free that we already bought, that's
Yeah, I know you guys
Yeah.
talked about like how many times we bought in Zelda 1. Like
Yeah.
every
Yeah.
single console.
No, and
handheld.
presumably, like let's call it here. There's going to be an upgrade fee. Like I don't think there's a world where you are just going to get access to those games and it's going to be at no cost. I mean, if that's not the case, like please Nintendo, like make sure that that is what you're working on and getting done. But I do want to bring up here that this is an interesting move only because we do live in a world now where you can play virtual console games on a different system that you can buy, being the NES Classic. Like the idea that there are virtual console games sort of separated from it. Now, that is not me suggesting in any way, shape, or form. I don't think that's the case. I think legitimately they didn't say anything at the presentation because they weren't sure. And I think now they're pretty damn sure that thing is not, virtual console is not ready. But it is an interesting time because Nintendo has done a lot of diversification over the last year.
Yeah.
And when you look at the NES Classic and this idea of a separate device that people who don't buy Nintendo devices can go get, and get that experience, it just makes you wonder, like what... We know it's coming, and I think it happens in the next 6 months. I don't know if it's the end of the year. If it is the end of the year, I think people would riot.
There's a good reason why it's not available. I mean, you may not agree with it, but Nintendo is rolling out a subscription service, right? You're going to pay for your online access, and you're going to pay to play special versions of these classic games
With online multiplayer.
And so I do think that factored into the decision making. It's not that hard for them to launch the virtual console service, or even to just have these games purchasable from the store, right? Like, I don't think that there was a technical hurdle to getting this live, but I do think it would have taken away a little bit of that specialness factor that when this plan rolls out, in the first month, you're going to get Mario Kart. I don't know what games are going to be in it, but you're going to get Mario Kart and you're going to play it online. And it's a classic game. And then maybe there may be the ability to also buy it and keep it or something. So I think it'll be more centered around that launch that the classic games are coming back.
We've spoken about this before, Jose, but it does seem like a lot of their marketing strategy has been to roll things out slowly so that people are focusing on one thing at a time. Like the thesis initially is this is the console that you can take anywhere. It's portable. That's the part they're trying to sell. They're trying to tell us how awesome the Joy-Cons are.
Point.
They don't want people to focus too much on Virtual Console, which funnily enough, everyone kind of is. That's the thing I really care about.
Because it's missing whenever
Exactly.
Well, yeah.
But it's probably missing so they can focus on the other things rather than just giving us too much to chew on at one time.
But I think the other part of this, sorry, Brendan, I'll turn it over to you, is Nintendo behind the scenes finally working on a quote unquote a plan, meaning that, you know, the biggest complaint about Virtual Console for the past 2 generations of home consoles that it's been on, and maybe even you could say this about 3DS, is the staggered release strategy of like, okay, we have 3 this week, we have nothing next week, we have 2 weeks of nothing, but here we got more in this one. And we saw like different instances where like, okay, now N64 games are around. And now they're not. And now Wii games are around. And it would like just come and go as, you know, the Nintendo roller coaster would just keep happening. I wonder or hope that may be one of the reasons or something that is getting worked out.
Right, that they're trying to fix that ahead of time and decide a kind of release schedule now.
Yeah. I mean, I
hope so.
I hope so too, especially just saying that they're trying to make the first year of Nintendo Switch a memorable one. You know, Brendan, you were going to say.
To Alana's point, I think even with eShop titles, like they are controlling the message where we don't know all of the eShop titles and the independent developers. Like we know, like, oh, we have like a release in March sometime, but we can't say anything yet. And like we're just this week, we're gonna announce like a Shovel Knight. We finally know a release date for that, and
I mean,
some
that's
things
a
get
good
pushed
point.
back.
Those devs would absolutely know the release date.
Yeah.
For whatever reason, they're not allowed to tell us, right? And
Yeah.
I wonder what that reason is.
And I think that they just want to like, let's focus on Zelda.
Yeah.
And then, you know, once the launch happens, and then, hey, there's also all these wonderful eShop titles as well.
Yeah.
Yep.
I hope by April or May there's more to be said. Definitely before E3, because you're not going to talk about it at E3. I think that it would not go over well at sort of this big trade show like event for them to wait that long to say something.
Well, when's the service launching?
The paid service launches in the fall, I believe. Like I'm guessing, like we're talking August, September. Which coincidentally is around the time Splatoon 2 is coming around. But that's paid version.
I'm asking that because I do think like if the paid service, we don't really know yet what it's going to be. It could be pretty freaking awesome, right? We talked about the BS service, the satellite service for Zelda in the past, where you got episodes streamed to you. We don't know what it's going to be. It could be really, really unique and different. And that, if it is, then it makes sense to use E3 as a vehicle to announce it. But yeah,
Maybe.
I agree. Just saying Super Mario Brothers is back again for
you
$5
put that on
is not going to
stage
be
or
that
in
exciting.
a digital event, like that's just not exciting. I mean, you could have done that with the NES Classic at E3. You chose not to.
Well, or they
know.
come back and they say, guess what? Earthbound is now in English. Like, then you have something, right?
That's a fan play, though.
The way I would reveal Virtual Console is by giving us a trailer of all of the games that are coming to Virtual Console, show us a highlights reel of games that we love that we can now play portable, and like have it as something saying you can play all of these games on the go now.
Yeah.
And I think that's a really good marketing strategy, but I don't think we're going to get it for a while.
No, and to that point, great point, is just have like all of them ready. Like have as many systems as possible. Come up with a strategy where you are not going through these gaps or you're bringing up a new system to then throw it away 2 weeks to a month later because you just don't have games to put out on that right now.
I wonder, since with the nature of the Switch, do you think we'll have Wii Virtual Console?
I don't think so. We talked about it on the show before. These do not work the same way Wii Remote and Nunchuck do. And I know some people would say, oh, well, they absolutely do. They have motion control. Not entirely. There's no pointer on this. And some games that use like, motion sensing as, they use the gyrometer as a pointer. There's like a motion pointer, for example, in Skyward Sword. You didn't have to use a sensor bar at all in that game. A majority of the other games did have that.
They did.
Mario Galaxy, Mario Galaxy 2.
Yeah.
You'd have to refactor them. Like anything's possible, right? Like could you pull off even like the early pointer games with this? Probably, but you would have to go in. You can't just straight up emulate. You have to change the code.
Yep. All right, so other part of this announcement, which was already brought up, but I just want to make sure we get both games mentioned in. On March 3rd, Fast Remix and Shovel Knight will be coming out. So they're both launch games
So
now,
excited.
which is really cool. Yeah, and Shovel Knight will have the latest expansion.
Lego Shadow.
No, Spectre of Torment.
Oh,
yeah. Where have you been?
Yeah, I get them crossed all the time because I really enjoyed Lego Shadow.
Yeah, we have a preview of that on the site if you want to check that out. Last week, I believe, Joshua Yell, who did a great job on that.
Do you think? All three seem like if you missed it titles, right? Like
totally.
it's not like you're going in the eShop and you're like, "There's this game you've never seen before." It's like One is a remix. The other, we have played Shovel Knight before, right?
But the remakes happened on a system that the audience wasn't there to appreciate it. And we've said on the show that game was solid. I think having a game like that at launch is a great thing. Shovel Knight, not sure as much the dent it's going to make because it's everywhere, but we'll see. It's probably the best retro game you're going to get at launch.
Yeah,
that's without
I
question.
do like that Spectre Torment is like its own thing.
Yeah, it's a new expansion, and you can buy the expansion separately now. So the original Shovel Knight, Plague of Shadows, and Spectre of Torment, you don't have to buy the treasure trove, which is all of them.
Yeah, I was surprised there wasn't a unique game. Like it. Kind of like a reason to go into the eShop because there's something that you can only download from,
Yeah, but that's
on,
like
on
snippet
day one.
clips. I think that's later in March.
It is later,
yeah.
You
don't want
absolutely
to put that up against Zelda.
Yeah.
I guess you buy the system for Zelda, so then how much time are you going to have to look at the rest of the stuff? But
all right.